Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Jordan, and members of the committee. My name is John Elias, and I am a career attorney with the Department of Justice. I joined the department in 2006, and over the past 14 years, I have served under 6 attorneys general and 3 presidents. I've spent my entire legal career at the department. Although I am a current department attorney, my testimony is personal and does not represent the views of the department. Throughout my career in federal service, I have been taught to do the right thing for the right reasons in the right way. That is why, earlier this year, I asked the DOJ Inspector General to examine whether multiple antitrust investigations launched under Attorney General Barr were abuses of authority or other misconduct. The first matter that I referred to the IG concerned 10 investigations that the Antitrust Division launched into merger activity in the marijuana or cannabis industry. These mergers were not even close to meeting established criteria for these kinds of investigations. And yet, these cannabis investigations accounted for a full 29% of the division's full review investigations last fiscal year. For context, these kinds of investigations are rare. On average, only 1 to 2% of the thousands of transactions that come before the division each year get a full review. In the first of the cannabis investigations, the merger of MedMen and PharmaCann, career attorneys examined the proposed deal and determined that the transaction called for no further antitrust review. Staff reached this conclusion using the criteria under the horizontal merger guidelines that have guided the division for decades. However, on March 5th, 2019, Attorney General Barr called the Antitrust Division leadership to his office and ordered the division to proceed with a full investigation. The division staff complied, issuing burdensome 15-page subpoenas that compelled production of 1.3 million documents from 40 personnel, all at great expense to the companies. Although the division ultimately found no evidence of antitrust problems, the companies abandoned the merger, citing delays in regulatory approval. The Antitrust Division went on to conduct similar investigations of 9 other mergers in the cannabis industry. Division staff continued to document at the outset the lack of any bona fide antitrust issues. In some cases, the companies operated in completely different geographies and did not compete at all. Nonetheless, the division continued to issue subpoenas and compel productions of millions of documents from these businesses. At one point, the office handling agriculture became so overwhelmed with cannabis investigations that it had to pull in attorneys from the telecommunications, media, and technology offices. In response to staff concerns about these investigations, the head of the Antitrust Division, Assistant Attorney General Del Rahim, acknowledged at an all-staff meeting that the cannabis industry is, quote, unpopular on the 5th floor, unquote, referring to AG Barr's offices at DOJ headquarters. But personal dislike of an industry is not a valid basis upon which to ground an antitrust investigation. Okay.
In your written testimony, you contended that mergers with cannabis industries were, quote, unlikely to raise significant competitive concerns. You further stated that a few of the documents produced in response to the subpoenas were ever reviewed by Antitrust Division staff. You essentially said that the second requests were made for purposes of burdening these companies. So you filed, as you stated earlier, a DOJ complaint about this with the Inspector General. Is that correct, yes or no?
Yes.
The letter of the Office of Professional Responsibility, the Office of Professional Responsibility indicated that they conducted a thorough review of your claims and concluded they were without merit. Is that not true?
So they concluded that even if the investigations were motivated by animosity, that would still comply with the DOJ.
So my answer to my question is yes. You wrote in your written testimony that the cannabis industry, you instructed the staff, quote, were not instructed to conduct interviews of customers. And that marijuana is not a Schedule I drug, correct? Is it a Schedule I or not?
I'm not sure exactly which schedule it's on, but it's on one of them, yes.
You were part of an antitrust in marijuana and didn't know how it was scheduled? And then we've asked to be part of this committee. Mr. Elias, the credibility of this is going downhill quickly here.
Mr. Elias, you've testified as to cases that Justice and Antitrust took up concerning areas that otherwise you didn't think, or in the Justice Department superiors didn't think were worthy of antitrust investigations. One was cannabis.
That's correct.
Was that cost the cannabis folks a lot of money?
Absolutely. These subpoenas that get issued that require production of millions of documents is very burdensome.
So it was harassment by Bill Barr of an industry he didn't like, is that right?
I think that's a fair way to characterize it, yes.
And ironically, that, just like Judge Rayo, it all comes back to one place. Barr doesn't like marijuana. Marijuana is 7 times more likely to be enforced against young African Americans, breeding discontent with police and breeding interactions with police. And Barr doesn't care about that type of stuff because he doesn't like marijuana, so that's okay. That's one of the breeding grounds of distrust of African Americans and police and African American contact and problems. Great, very unfortunate.